We don't talk enough about the kind of burnout no metrics can measure. The kind that comes from leading while invisible, being in the room yet never truly seen. Especially as women, especially as women of color, especially in systems that reward silence over truth. We burn out in silence, and the silence is killing our leaders. We are taught to perform, to polish, to hold it all together, even as we quietly unravel. We wear the mask, we play the part, we burn out in silence.
The presence of being silenced, like I needed to wear a mask.
But what happens when a leader decides to stop performing and finally leads unfiltered?
There's no more masking for me.
Today's guest is here to answer that. Dr. Natalie Callis is a distinguished nurse executive, certified executive coach, and the founder of Quintessential Consulting. With a doctorate in executive leadership and a career spanning clinical, academic, and operational roles, she has seen the cracks up close. And she's not here to sugarcoat them. She's here to rip off the mask. Welcome to Mastery Podcast, where entrepreneurs and experts uncover the truth about health, wealth, and personal mastery. I'm Dr. Sas, and together we dive deep into strategies that elevate your business and well-being beyond mainstream advice. Get ready for powerful stories, expert insights, and transformational knowledge. Welcome back to Mastery Podcast, where we highlight entrepreneurs and change makers who are creating real positive impact. I'm your host, Dr. Sass. And today, I'm sitting down with someone who honestly stopped me in my track during our pre-interview because not only did she name what I believe is an epidemic for leaders, especially in healthcare, she also brought the solution. Dr. Natalie Callis, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sass. It is a pleasure to be here with you to talk about everything that you said in the intro. How do we unmask? How do we as leaders lead with authenticity, especially in this paradigm, in this world that we're currently living in? So again, thank you so much, Dr. Sass.
Thank you for being here, Dr. Callis. So, Dr. Natalie Callis, the clarity, the honesty, and the depth that you bring to the leadership conversation, it is so rare. That's why we are on the show today, and it's so powerful. When we spoke the other day, and it is exactly what leaders need right now. So let's dive right in.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Now, Dr. Natalie Callis, can you take us back to that exact moment when you realized that traditional leaderships wasn't working, not for you and not for anyone, not for any leader?
Yeah. You know, I take that back to a personal experience, right? Because I believe, again, you're a human first before you're a leader. So it was an experience that happened maybe about 3 to 4 years ago when my grandmother had fell unexpectedly ill. And in that moment, I saw how performative my family was, how everyone was saving face. No one was telling the truth. No one was saying how they truly felt, right? Everyone was scared. We all were scared. No one was communicating appropriately. And I started to feel that internally, that burnout. And then I equated that to my work, right? Because again, I'm still a working mother. I'm still dealing with family issues. And now I have to deal with work as well. And at work, I felt the presence of being silenced. Like I needed to wear a mask. I couldn't say what I truly felt because again, I'm a C-suite leader, right? So there's certain things that don't belong in the C-suite boardroom, as they say, right? But it's the truth. And I felt like I couldn't share my truth. I couldn't really lead the way I authentically wanted to lead. So that's when it started to unfold. And just like when your intro, when you talked about the cracks, I was cracked. I felt it. I felt it internally. I hit rock bottom. And that was the point where I said, there's no more masking for me. There's no more leading filtered. right? I need to truly unfilter my message, unfilter the way I lead in every aspect of my life. And it's been truly transformational.
That is a powerful story, Dr. Natalie Callis. And because leaders, right, as leaders, we are the leader of our family. And if you don't have a leading role in the business or in corporate, we are the leader of our life. And because most leaders never stop to admit when the mask is on, right? And we feel like we need to put on this performance all the time and pretend to be the leader that everybody want us to be and forget to be ourselves. And take me deeper into that, Dr. Carlos. What shifted inside you in that moment? And even in the boardroom, not just personally in your personal life, what shifted?
Yeah, so, as you said when you originally just asked the question about, people are putting on the mask, right? I think a lot of it has to do we no longer even know that we're masking. We've been
Mhm.
taught to lead in a certain way, right? Show up, leave the emotions at home, right? To show up and just be that leader for everyone else. But the person that we're forgetting is ourselves. So that was the moment in the boardroom when I'm thinking, I'm not being me right now. I know you feel it internally. It's like an internal fight. It's, what to say, what not to say. Who's in the room? Are you going to be judged? Am I saying the right thing? All of these mindsets and these thoughts go through your mind in that moment. And it could be suffocating. I truly felt suffocated in the room. And, it gets to the point where no more, right? Why can't I be that leader I want to be? Right? We don't full cookie cutter approaches. We are all not the same, right? We live in a heterogeneous world. We're not a homogeneous mixture. We're not meant to be the same. And I think pushing the envelope and really encouraging leaders to be themselves, and that's what I truly wanted to be. And that's where I am most comfortable. I am comfortable being me. I'm comfortable saying what I need to say in an unfiltered way. And it does challenge the status quo. And, let's be very honest here. This is an uncomfortable process because, again, being conforming is comfortable, right? Because you're saying everything everybody else wants to hear. You're reading the book, you're repeating and reciting what the old leadership textbooks wanted you to say. But in actuality, it wasn't working. Those techniques and those things don't work in the room. So you have to take a different approach. And that's what I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is so raw, Dr.
Yeah.
Carlos. A lot of people listening right now, they will recognize themselves in this similar situation. You're thinking like, okay, what can I say? What should I say? Instead of being authentic, being truthful, and bring to the table what you actually feel, and that that raw, that authentic leadership that is inside you. Right, that's the kind of leaders we need in today's society. Now, with that said, Dr. Natalie, because I want to make sure that leaders out there who are listening, who have this feeling and who want to change, and who have that gift to lead, and is not comfortable to speak up. How are they feeling? I mean, in that moment, how are they feeling? Because you said it a while ago. They don't even realize they have that mask on. They're just being politically correct,
Yes.
right? Can
Yes.
can you shed some light into what those leaders are feeling at this moment so they can identify themselves
Yeah.
with this conversation we're having right now?
Right now, those leaders are feeling robotic. You are operating on autopilot. You're doing what you were taught, you're doing what you know to do, and it's becoming exhausting. It's becoming a rat race. You are on that hamster wheel constantly going and going, but you're not reaching anywhere internally, right? As a leader, I'm not. Yes, I may be meeting the metrics, right? I may be meeting my KPIs, but how am I feeling as a leader? Remember, it is your legacy, it is your trajectory. You form it, right? And then you are standing in a place where, is this really my own, right? And that's what I had to face. Is this Dr. Natalie's own? Is this my leadership? And it worked, right? And there's so many leaders that are feeling the same way, right? Because you have to say, we're taught to say what's politically correct, just as you said, Dr. Sass. And when is it time to challenge the status quo? When is it time to name what is actually happening in the room? Right. So it gets to a point where you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's what we all have to face. And it takes courage. It's a muscle that we have to build, right? A lot of our muscles are weak right now, right? And when we're talking about that leadership muscle, but we have to build it. We have to, you know, turn the mirror inside and say, is this the person that I want to be? Is this the legacy as a leader that I want to leave? And that's the question we need to answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Natalie, for that answer. It hits so deep because it just so many of us didn't quite understand what that means. And let's go back to the framework that you are using, Dr. Natalie Callis. Behind that framework, why did you choose Maslow? We were having a conversation where you um, based your leadership training on that.
Yeah, yeah. So, I started off at Maslow's because I used to do a leadership training, as you said, for nursing leadership to where I equated that to how to be transformational leaders. As I was doing the research, I looked at it as a model of how to become self actualized, right? What are the steps to becoming a self actualized? And that's synonymous with being unfiltered, being authentic, being that leader who pushes the status quo but is okay with it, right? Everyone aims for the top. But how do we get to the top is what I hear all the time, right? Be your best self, right? But how do I do that? How do I show up as my authentic self? How do I empower staff? Right? We need the building blocks. So Maslow's hierarchy is an evidence-based framework. It's used in many different realms and areas, and this equates exactly to leadership. So we start at the bottom, right? That physiological level, we're talking about stability for performance, right? So am I stable enough, right? In order to build up the tier, in order to be self actualized, in order to be authentic and unfiltered, right? We have to look at areas of psychological safety, especially in the workplace, right? If we are not psychologically safe, we will not speak up. We won't speak up in that boardroom. There's no trust in the boardroom, right? How do we evoke that, and how do we feel comfortable enough with also knowing there may be distrust in the boardroom, but we have to lead anyway. So it's skills and tools to help you learn that and how to get over it and how to be a productive leader anyway. Then there's, belonging, making sure we belong, the esteem level, which I find that one is the most salient level for leaders, right? Esteem is your executive presence. Esteem is how you show up, right? Your credibility. And remember, you show up before you show up, right? And if we go a little bit deeper, right? So again, when you walk into a room, maybe no one knows who you are, but they feel your presence, they feel your energy. So that is what you want to be, as that self-proclaimed or unfiltered leader. And then you can be that self-actualized, that unfiltered leader, that person that's showing up because this is how I show up. This is me, right? It's showing up as you, the human first before the leader.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And we forget that we get to be the human
Yeah.
behind the title. We we are allowed to be that human behind the title, the leadership title, and that is such a beautiful connection that you bring in with the Maslow framework. Is there any stages in this process that was your biggest battle as a leader, and especially as a woman leader?
Yes. Yes. The biggest challenge for me was the belonging stage. And belonging is that feeling of connectedness, that feeling, that sense that you do belong. So again, so I say it's personal and professional, right? So I'm going to say if I'm being unfiltered, I am saying things that will challenge the status quo. I struggle with if I'm honest, am I offending someone? Am I hurting someone's feelings? And even take that back to my own personal life, right? Because again, being unfiltered transcends from personal and professional. This is you, right? This is you showing up. So, in a personal aspect, if I'm giving honest feedback to a family member, friends, it may not be nice, but it's true, right? And I struggle with, well, how do I say it? When do I say it? Synonymously with the boardroom at work in leadership. I need to say something to a particular colleague or to my boss, right? Thinking of the upper hierarchy, but it might be uncomfortable and it may cost me that feeling of connectedness and feeling of belonging. Because remember, if you're not saying what everyone else is saying, you run the risk of being on the outside.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest thing for me to get over and accept the fact of not everybody's going to like what I say. Not everyone is going to appreciate my perspective, but I have to say it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you overcome that? I mean, what do you do to actually say, "Hey, I don't give a crap." It's sometimes you have to say what need to be said in the boardroom, in those meetings. How I mean, yeah, you have and I've been in those positions, where you have all this thought running through your head, right? Are people gonna judge me? People gonna say something about me? How can leaders overcome that?
It takes time. It is not a fast process. As I said, it's a muscle. It's a muscle that you have to build because you have to be strong to do this. And it's something, like I said, it didn't happen for me overnight. But I think the catalyst for me was hitting rock bottom. When I told you that story about my family and how I was pulled in so many directions, professionally, personally, it was too much. I needed to set boundaries. I needed to, hold up the stop sign. Wait a minute. I have to put me first, right?
Mhm.
So I think that is the key to starting the journey, right? It's knowing when this is something I have to do for me. And I do hope, and the reason why, Dr. Sass, I really wanted to come on here and share this is I don't want others to hit rock bottom in order to make that change like I had to do. But knowing beforehand is the most important thing. But sometimes it takes those tough experiences, those hard life lessons, right, that make you truly change and pivot, the way that you conduct yourself as a person and as a leader.
Absolutely. That is so powerful. Thank you for that. It does takes time, and you may not get it the first time, and it like you said, it's a muscle. You have to go to the gym a few times before you have that bicep, right? You have to keep doing it, and it's not the end of the world when you fail the first time and you didn't speak up in the boardroom. You have to go in there again, and you have the exact method for them to practice each time they go into that boardroom, they go into that meeting, right? And let's talk about behind closed door, right? Behind closed door, what we talk about trauma, right? That we bring in as a human, whether it be society, our culture, our upbringing. We as a human have that trauma that we bring into our leadership. What does that look like in the boardroom behind the closed door? What does that look like?
So the trauma that we bring into the boardroom, it looks like something that's broken. It feels broken. And again, it comes from our past, right? Because there's so many times that we think of things, and I'm sure everyone could relate to this. How feelings or how you view things or how people view you stem back to childhood or those formative years. right? So think about it. It's years of built up trauma, right? And that is what shapes how we lead, how we look at things, how we react to people. And sometimes it's good, right? Sometimes there's good things, but also sometimes there are things that now is informing trauma later on in our lives, right? And trauma could be at any variation of the spectrum, right? But it's something that is guiding, sometimes unconsciously, how we are leading, how we're showing up. And then as I feel like as we get older, that's when it starts to feel uncomfortable. That's when we start to question, why am I feeling like this? What happened that I am now questioning myself? Right. And that's the biggest thing. And a lot of times it stems back to, was I judged as a child? What are the narratives that I have been telling myself that I now need to break? So that's the most important thing. It's very foundational. Again, back to Maslow's, that foundational work, right? Unlearning things that we may have learned, unlearning those tools, those skills that may not be effective for us at this point in our life. We have to revisit that constantly.
Mhm. Well said, Dr. Natalie Callis. Well said. Now, if we don't uncover that you know past that keep bringing up our current leadership style, if we don't take care of that, what would be the cost? What is the cost? Actually, there are a lot of leaders out there leading at a price.
Yeah, you are. You are. So well said, Dr. Sash. You are leading at a price. The price is burnout. The price is lack of fulfillment, not even just in leadership, but just it'll transcend into your life. It leads to regret, right? Think about how many times we've put our roles ahead of our family, ahead of what really mattered, right? And then we look back and said, man, I should have went to that basketball game for my child. I should put that day off and went to my doctor's visit, right? So many times we put our roles ahead of ourselves and we start to deplete our own tank, right? And we're not even noticing we're depleting it until it's gone, right?
Mm.
So it's empty, it's dry, there's nothing there, right? So we have to, if we want to live a life that's fulfilled, right? And again, this is again, that gives, Dr. Sass, I get pretty raw sometimes, right? We cannot be on our deathbed thinking of what we should have done.
Right.
And that's when it usually happens. When we are faced intimately with death, and again, this is back to my work as a nurse, right? Seeing people at the bedside, seeing people with those terminal diagnoses, that's when life comes back to them. And that should not be the point when life comes back to you.
Yeah. That hit home so hard, Dr. Natalie Callis, because I'm thinking when I was in the leadership role and I put my life, my kids, my family on the line for everything, and you're not getting reward for it. You get punished even more, and this is the boundary that we must set. And I'm gonna say this because I was managing a pharmacy because, pharmacy is my background. I was managing this multi-million dollar pharmacy,
Mhm.
and I put my heart and soul into it. I mean, I literally went to work while I was sick, and I passed out. I had passed out. If the technician didn't catch me, I would have hit my head, and who know what could have happened. But it was so bad. I took my kids to work, put them in the waiting room and on a Saturday, and this is where we need to set boundary and said, "Hey, you know, where what does leadership come? What's price are we willing to pay, and what boundaries, do we must make?" And we all make that mistake or, choose the wrong option that, like you said, Dr. Carlos, that we gonna be on our deathbed regretting, and we never want that. That's why we're having this conversation right now. Um, the what do you say to those leaders who are in that position right now where they want to speak up? They want to say, "Hey, I'm leading, but we need to bring in more help. We need this, we need that," but they're afraid to speak up because they feel like there there are so much expectations for the role that they are holding at this
Yeah.
moment.
There are, and I think it starts with first being honest with yourself, knowing what you can do and what you can't do, right? Because again, of course, you're going to be stretched as a leader. You're going to be asked for more and given less, right? But you have to voice that, right? Because I think one of the detrimental things many leaders do is put their head down and keep working anyway. And they'll say, well, I'll figure it out, right? But then how many times does that turn into the fact of you're still penalized anyway because you didn't meet the outcome? You were trying with less and you were trying and trying, burning yourself out. Like Dr. Sass, like you said, taking your kids to work, right? Trying to just get it done.
Mhm.
But then when you look at that retrospectively, did that really matter? And that's the question many of us ask, and many times it wasn't.
Yeah.
And I feel like especially during this time, that COVID occurred, many of our lives have changed meaning, right? Because we've experienced, death at a rate that many of us have never experienced before. And to that end, we now have remote work opportunities as well. Right. So I feel like, I always use this analogy, and Dr. Sass, I think I shared this with you before. You know, 2020 is similar to Charles Dickens' The Opening Two Lines, right, of A Tale of Two Cities.
Mhm.
It was the best of times, but it also was the worst of times.
Yeah.
Right. So think about that. So the best of times, meaning we're able to now refocus ourselves on our lives. Think about what truly matters in this moment. Then the worst of times is loss, right? Loss of job, loss of family, loss of a lot of things, loss of really the life that we once knew is not the current, right? And everyone's adjusting and pivoting, right? So now is the time for us to start a new leadership model, a new trajectory, a new mindset, because we still want to be effective, but we need to be effective in our personal and professional lives as well.
Absolutely. Well said. I love it. I love it. And a lot of leaders are burnout in silence. Right? We want to unsilence our leaders.
Yes, because you know what, this is been something so many people are undergoing, but no one talks about it. That's the
Yeah.
hate. You suffer in silence because it's not, admirable, or you don't want to be showing too much humility to say that
Mhm.
you're suffering right now. But we only voice that, like I said, when we hit the bottom. But we feel ourselves going down. You feel it. It's something that is unexplainable, but when you feel it, right? So let's get ahead of that. Let's put modalities in place. Let's put structures in place, mindsets in place for us to endure, the leadership pulls and the stressors and the things that we have to do anyway, but let's get the tools to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Natalie Callis, I think you just give the leaders the permission slip.
Yes.
Let's speak up, let's voice your truth, unmask and lead with authenticity. And it's okay to be human. It's
Yes.
okay. Leadership doesn't mean you have to be perfect, right?
Yes. 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 And that is unfortunately what has been the sentiment, that I need to be right. Here goes a performance, right? I need to show up a certain way. I have to do this.
Yeah.
But you don't, right? And also I want to be clear, when I say speak up, I'm saying speak up professionally. So not in a rude sense, not in a negative sense, in from a point where I'm just voicing my thoughts and my opinions in a professional manner. And I need to expect respect in return.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well said, well said. I know I said that well said many times, but I think you're amazing, Dr. Callis, and I love this conversation. Where were you years ago when I was in one of those roles? I needed you back then.
Where was I when I needed me?
Absolutely. We all have to go through those journey to become who we need to become to lead others, right? And Dr. Carlson, let me ask you this. You've done many training for leadership. What's the most common mask leaders wear that you help them remove?
Probably the mask of humility,
Mhm.
right? So a lot of leaders don't want to be humble and say that I made a mistake
Mm.
or I made the wrong decision, right? So being comfortable saying, I'm sorry, or maybe I should have taken a different road or different approach. And that's when a lot of the performance starts because
Mhm.
they're doing so much work to cover up what may have been perceived as an error, but perhaps was a learning experience, right? But that's a lot of leaders across all disciplines. They do so much work trying to prove that, oh, I corrected it or I can do better. And so much energy goes into that versus how freeing or how comfortable it would have been to say, this was a misstep, but let me take the other route.
Mhm.
That's all that needs to be said.
Absolutely. Now, can you describe a time when one of your clients had a breakthrough during a session, and what did they say? What did they realize at that moment?
So one of my clients that I had, we were talking about the aspect of getting feedback, or more so constructive feedback. So it may not be as positive or something they would want to hear. So this particular individual, and it was a woman, you know, um, early on in her career, and was talking about how the leadership at her particular institution, she felt as though they were coming down hard on her, right? Like they're telling me I should be doing all of these different things, but I feel like I'm doing the right thing. And then she would speak about how the particular leaders at the organization were toxic, how they would how they have a punitive culture and how they would berate people in front of others. And this particular leader who gave her the feedback was one of the people who did that. And I said to her, and I said, is this a leader that you would want to emulate? Is this a leader that has characteristics that you admire? And she told me, "Oh." I said, okay, now think about when we're getting feedback and how we're going to adjust ourselves based on the feedback coming from someone. We have to ensure that that feedback is valid to us. Think about it. This person who is toxic, punitive, all of the negative attributes of leadership, and is now telling you to do something different. Is that an opinion that you need to respect? You don't have to. So that's what many leaders have to understand is it's the aha moment, right? And I went a little bit deeper with her and I gave her the analogy of, walking down the street and you see a homeless person. And the homeless person is, berating you and saying, ha ha, making fun of you, poking fun, right? You don't have this, you don't have that.
Mm.
And I was like, would you take that advice from a homeless person? And automatically she said, no, that person is homeless. Look at what they're doing. I said, so again, apply that to the workplace. The same way you would not take it from a person who's homeless and let's say has all of these maybe negative attributes and things like that, right? Would you take it from someone who you truly don't admire in their leadership? We have to have discernment when we're getting feedback, right? And when we're implementing things that people suggest, because not everything that people suggest is something you have to do or even valid.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Dr. Carlos. That really give me goosebumps because, I as a leader, again, I have experienced that in my career, and when you're a young leader, for example, you want to, like you say, have that sense of belonging. You want to fit in with the pack, and you just go with the flow and do what everybody's doing. And at the end of the day, you actually need to check with yourself, like, would you emulate the person that you don't feel like you want to be, you want to aspire to be. And, well said. Now, if I sat down with you, Dr. Carlos, in the past, I would need that. Now I own my own company, we have our own culture, so it's That's why I left that toxic environment. But anyway, if I sit down with you for a session, what's one uncomfortable truth I probably gonna hear?
You would hear that leadership is not fair, synonymously with life is not fair.
Yeah.
So we are living in a time where we need to navigate the unleveled playing field. And these are the tools that I'm giving everyone right now of the how to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it is super unfair, but we as leader, we sign up for the role and we want to lead effectively and it just the way it is, right? Life is unfair, leadership is unfair. You're gonna have to develop yourself and become the leader that that you already are, right?
That's right. That's right. Be authentically you. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you picture the future of unfiltered leadership, Dr. Natalie Callis, what does that movement looks like for you?
So it'll be a group of leaders who are ready to challenge the status quo
Mhm.
and want to empower others to do so. So again, it will be a iterative process.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And that is so good to hear you say that, Dr. Callis. It is a group of leaders, definitely, um, and who wants to lead authentically, who want to lead unfiltered, and who want to lead with the passion of who they really are and how they want that positive outcome for their group, right? For their company. Now, Dr. Carlos, when I think about your work, I honestly, honestly see you as the kind of leader who's giving others permission to finally breathe, to finally lead without the mask. And that feels like a legacy in the making. How do you see the impact of this movement unfolding over the next decade?
Wow. It's exciting to even think about it. And I see it unfolding as everyone bringing their unique talents to the table. Because that is one of the things I tell all of the people that I coach. You are uniquely talented and you
Mhm.
have to embrace that. Again, because everyone, especially in leadership, will tell you to be someone else. Right. So bringing those talents to the table, having a leadership bench, right? A large leadership bench full of diversity and not just culturally, not just skin color, talents, interdisciplinary conversation. So again, I work a lot in healthcare, but crossing disciplines, having those exchange of ideas so we could come up with extraordinary frameworks that truly challenge the status quo, but make our leadership trajectory and our legacies that we're building more grounded, more with more depth and breadth to it.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. It is more than just a single person, right? It take a village. This just feel like a movement, and I feel like more and more leaders are coming out and saying what you just say, you know. And it's not just for you. It's not just a coaching method. It's is leading with purpose. And for leader listening right now, who feels that pull, what would be the first step, Dr. Natalie Callis? What would be the first step to join you in it?
I think the first step would be, Dr. Sass, as you said, leading with purpose, but also living with purpose. You have to want to live with purpose. Because again, going back to my mantra, right? You're a human first, then you're a leader. So you have to want to do that, feel that itch, right? To lead differently. That's the starting point.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So leaders out there, if you hear Dr. Natalie Callis, listen to what she said. Now, most executive coaches out there, Dr. Callis, are focused on teaching people how to look their part, right? How to perform the present and, being on stage and doing this, doing that. But you're different, right? You're different. You don't just teach. You you do something different. What is it that you actually teach them to do?
I'm giving everyone the building blocks, right? So again, personally and professionally, because they go together, right? So how do I lead? What do I need to do? So that's where the framework comes into play, right? Do I have stability in my life? Am I psychologically safe? Giving you the tools and techniques that are inside each of these tiers that build upon each other. Because what we are seeing are people who have not mastered the particular tier, and then you're seeing the adverse effect. For example, let's say someone who has not mastered their stability for performance tier, like that bottom layer, they're going to start to practice from burnout because they're so used to proving themselves, right? And trying to make it seem like I'm okay, right? That performance, you will start to burn out. Synonymously with a leader who has not mastered the esteem level, right? They will now start to micromanage, right?
Mhm.
Because then you have to prove yourself and show the worth. So again, if you have staff members who you don't trust to do the work, right? Because I have to make sure that I am having the presence, that I am productive,
Mm.
right? You will start to underperform. And there are cues. There are cues in every leader that I coach. You can see it. How they're showing up is an example or an effect of an unmastered tier.
Wow. That's the whole different level there. And tons of leaders out there can use that type of training. Now, what's the one leadership truth, Dr. Natalie Callis, that people don't want to hear but need to hear?
Yeah. You know, one of the truths is that when you are performing, you're not actually leading. You are literally putting on a performance, right? So again, all of the things and all of the initiatives and all of, let's say, even the legacy that you're trying to leave, your individualized legacy is not being accomplished. And many leaders don't want to hear that, right? Because the textbook says, I'm following all of what I'm supposed to do to lead and I'm performing it. So I must be leading. But in actuality, you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right on there. And I am so sorry we like out of time. I want to talk to you more. This has been such a fun conversation. But Dr. Callis, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your wisdom, for such honesty, for such clarity and the depth that you bring to this conversation. And if today's conversation resonate with you, check the show notes for all of Dr. Carla's link, and you'll find everything there, everything you need to connect with her and to learn more about the unfiltered leadership. And to our audience out there, thank you for tuning in. This is Dr. Sas signing off. Keep mastering your business, your health, and your inner self, because how you lead your life is how you lead everything else. And maybe the most important step you can take is to finally lead unfiltered. See you in the next episode. Bye for now.